Thanks for staying with us. You're still watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Just before we bring in our guest for our conversation on the task ahead of the new Minister of Housing and Urban Development, let's take this background report by Timothy Yusuf.
Nigeria's housing deficit using the latest official data released in 2026. The Federal Ministry of Housing and Urban Development's National Housing Data Technical Committee pegged Nigeria's housing deficit at 14.925 million housing units for 2025. Development experts noted that this was announced at the 14th National Council on Lands, Housing and Urban Development in Ilorin, Kwara State. They attributed the deficit to rapid population growth, urbanization, limited access to long-term housing finance, land and title bottlenecks, and inadequate housing supply across regions. They, however, believe that the challenges are not insurmountable.
Our vision is that in the next 10 years, everybody will own a property. Everybody will own a property. We see when we talk about real estate in our country right now, the middle class and middle earners feel like, oh, we can't own a property. It's only for the rich people. Real estate is for the rich people. But no, we have come to tell the world that real estate is for everyone.
The new Minister of Housing and Urban Development is Dr. Mutaha Rabi Dharma from Katsina State. He was sworn in by President Bola Tinubu on Friday, April 24, 2026, replacing Ahmed Musa Dangiwa, who resigned on April 21, 2026. Development analysts are of the views that the key tasks and priorities waiting on his desk based on the ministry's current agenda and 2026 plans are to deliver the Renewed Hope Housing Program, which is the flagship of Tinubu's housing policy. Under this, the immediate targets include 4,000 housing units in 2026 across 15 state capitals. Some other key tasks include ongoing renewed hope cities and estates, addressing the housing deficit through means of affordability. This is because Nigeria's deficit remains massive. Over 100 million Nigerians are reported to lack adequate housing. National Social Housing Fund is another key task area. The new minister is expected to set up a system for no income, low income, and underprivileged Nigerians. Other tasks range from comprehensive land reforms to cutting off construction costs as well as jobs creation. Dharma inherits a ministry with active construction but also big structural gaps, as President Tinubu told him he's coming in at a very challenging time of national development and expects competent hands. During Senate screening, he pledged to work with the National Assembly to cut the housing deficit, expand access. Over now to our guests in the studio for more.
Thank you so much for joining us, and we have our guests seated here in our studio, Timothy Yusuf. We appreciate that background report. Let me begin with my guest here in the studio is the Mr. Ambassador Moses Obesasan. He's the CEO of Stratec and Properties Limited, a real estate broker and developer, certified international property specialist designate, member National Association of Realtors USA, fellow Society of Project International, and promoter of 1 million homes. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Also seated here in the studio is John Olugbemi. He's head marketing and communications, the Millard Fuller Foundation. Thank you so much for coming. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Yes, joining us from our Lagos studio, we have Damola Akindolire. Is the PPP consultant for Renewed Hope Cities project. Damola, it's good to have you join us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you for having me.
Also from our Kaduna studio, we have Shehu Usman Salihu, is the Permanent Secretary, Ministry for Housing and Urban Development, Kaduna State. It's good to have you. Sure. It's good to have you. Sure.
Good morning and happy to be here.
Thank you. Also joining us via Zoom is Ayodele Olusoya, property developer. Ayodele, good morning to you.
Good morning.
All right.
Thank you for having me.
Zooms look good.
Yeah, go ahead.
This morning. Okay, let's begin with you here in the studio, Mr. Moses. You know, we keep hearing about housing deficit in Nigeria. There's a huge gap. We can't deny that. It cannot be overemphasized, actually. But is the problem really a lack of housing or a system that seems not to exist and make houses affordable for Nigerians? What is it?
Okay. Thank you so
Or
much.
is it lack of political willpower?
Oh, thank you. I would say it's a combination of a few things. First of all, we are producing housing at a lower rate, at a slower rate, compared to the rate of growth of slums.
Can you say that again?
Nigeria, we are actually producing houses at a slower rate compared to the growth of slums in Nigeria. So that's very scary. What it means is that maybe the slums is being built, let's say you have 100,000 units of all kinds of uninhabitable houses growing in an environment, and then you now have the proper houses, maybe 50,000. So it means that, in fact, there was actually there was an area view that was done at some point, and you realize that places that were good before started getting into slum in this country.
Overstretched.
So yeah, over time. So what, and a very simple thing to see in Abuja to be able to really demonstrate that is just take a walk just across here at Mpapi. It tells you the story very clearly. Mpapi started at just a small stuff. It snowballed into where you have millions of Nigeria living in an unguided places where people should not sleep. That's what you have in Mpapi. Mpapi is just a crossover to the prestigious Maitama in Abuja. So if anybody is telling you what's happening, that shows you exactly what's happening. Because if you're not seeing how close it is, so you are now thinking about why do you have criminality and the rest so close to the city center. The hands that are available are very close. You don't need to go far. You don't need. You're just right there, Mpapi. In fact, Mpapi is actually an extension of it's Maitama 2 actually. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's where because anytime you see people say Maitama 2, that's really where it is. So I'm trying to say that it is here with us. So when I say it's a combination of all. Now, secondly, I also think the growth of slums being higher than the growth at which we're producing houses. Fantastic, this government came and he said, I'm going to do 100,000 housing units. It looks big, but it's a scratch, actually.
And we have a new minister now. Actually, that's what this conversation is, the tax ahead of the minister. You itemize some, startling statistics there, and it's quite scary.
Correct.
So what should the minister be, what should be his top priorities now as he gets into office? What should he be looking into?
His job is clearly cut out for him. There's no need reinventing the wheel. Already the president has really said, this is my Renew Hope agenda for housing. There's no need beating around it. And it's a beautiful stuff. First of all, achieve that. And how do you achieve it? It's simple. You must understand, you must not only be a technocrat. Usually some technocrats fail in Nigerian politics because they are unable to balance the two. You can say, oh, this thing, I want to go and refine it and do all that stuff. The politician doesn't have that time for you. You must be able to balance both the political side and your wisdom that you're coming in, the professionalism that you're bringing in. What do I say? To break this down, I would just say, quickly, divide whatever you want to do instantly into immediate, medium term, and long term. Mr. President wants to see what he's going to commission in the next 100 days. If you fail him right there, he first of all mark you. no matter how beautiful your 5 years or 10 years or whatever program will be. So you need to first of all say, okay, this is the immediate stuff. 100 days, I want to be able to do this. So you look at unfinished job. Don't go and start yours. It should not be about making money. Cool down. Don't go and start a new project. You will never be able to finish that within that space of time. You look at the ones that can just quickly connect. I'll give you a very simple example. If you look at FCT, there are certain bridges, there are certain roads that for donkey years, I've been in Abuja for about 30 years.
Wow.
97 till now. Next year is going to be 30 years, 29 years now. And there are certain places in Abuja, I thought that was the way it was constructed. If you look at Zone 7, you drive down to Bega to go and turn over to make Wuye. I never knew that there was a plan for bridge across that divide. But this guy came. The former minister for FCT was around for like 8 years, all through. The current minister for FCT, Wike, came in, and within 9 months, he started, crossing the T's and dotting the I's. This guy understands it, maybe because first of all, he was a politician, then he now understands what it is. So he knows that my president will want people to see deliverables. They don't want long stories. So I am saying divide whatever you want to do into short term, medium term, and long term. About what your predecessor is already doing. Okay. And start clicking them one after the other. Okay, Mr. Bishop, thank you very much. You have given us your opening shots there, but let's first x-ray the challenges that we have, John, because just like he said, Nigeria's housing deficit stands at over 20 million, with millions of people living in slums, sleeping in slums, yet billions lie buried in uncompleted projects in the country concerning housing. Now let's x-ray the challenges that we have. What are these challenges in the housing sector right now?
Oh, thank you very much once again for having me. I pay a lot of attention to the affordable housing market. And when we look at the housing deficit, we have several figures, 17, 20, 26, 29. I don't want to say flying around. But the interesting thing to note is a large percentage of those that are lacking adequate housing at a particular part of the earning pyramid. I live just a bit outside the FCT, and we have a lot of projects. Coming down here, I saw a lot of people. So you see, trying to come into town. So you see a large number of people who work in the FCT. Many of them live outside the FCT because they cannot afford the high cost of rent. Now the number is increasing. Many of them have been driven out even from the outskirts, because the moment this high cost of rent is increased in the city center, they're moving. The landlords outside the city center begin to see this is some interesting market coming to me. He increases the prices. So when you look at the entire value chain, you realize that the major challenge here is not just the availability of houses. Yes, there are not enough houses, but how many of these available houses can majority of Nigerians afford? So you see private developers putting up houses, expecting a civil servant that earns probably between 70,000, 120,000, 130,000, 150,000. How will they even be able to afford a house that sells beyond a certain amount of money? So you approach a developer, you ask for a 2-bedroom apartment, he's telling you 50 million, he's telling you 60 million. And then this civil servant begins to look at you like, am I ever going to have a house for the rest of my life? I think I like the introductory part of this segment where the task ahead of the minister were clearly earmarked. And what piqued my interest is social housing. The need to declare a state of emergency on the housing sector. Because the truth is, this person has worked 35 years. What does he retire? What should he retire to? Most of the time, you see that people are agitated. If at the end of the day, I know that after I have worked for a period of time, I'm going to own a house of my own. You see that I'm going to get committed. I'm going to put in all my efforts. I'm going to dedicate my time and my passion to ensuring that I get the job done. So the task ahead of the minister is enormous. The challenges are enormous, as I mentioned. Yes, there are a lot of housing projects ongoing, which, you know, the president has done remarkably well, but I think a whole lot needs to be done. The task ahead of the minister: declare a state of emergency, set up a task, an affordable housing panel that reports directly to him and say, this is what is happening and this is what should be done in that area.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much for your opening comments there. You know, you talked about affordable housing, and that is part of the promises we've been hearing for years on end, you know, for civils, affordable housing. Now let's bring in our guest in Lagos now.
Damola.
Yeah. Let's bring in Olukayode Olusanya. He's joining us actually via Zoom from Lagos. He's CEO of the Oak Holdings parent company of Oak Homes. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, madam. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, sorry we got your name wrong the first instance. So I hope we got it right now. You've been listening to our guests here in the studio, and our guest that just finished talking was talking about affordable housing, affordable housing, affordable housing. We've been hearing that like a sing-song for years, and the hope Nigerians have for affordable housing is sort of diminishing by the minute. Now, what does affordable housing, you know, sort of mean for us to begin to understand in naira terms of an average Nigerian actually earning minimum wage in this country? How affordable is it?
Okay. Good morning again. I think within our small community of NTA and several sessions we've had, I think my position is quite known in terms of affordable housing, which, just for clarity again and for the purpose of those joining us for the first time, I would mention, government is the only party that can introduce affordable housing, because housing itself is not affordable. So it's with subsidized development that you can have affordable housing. And I believe, and to be honest, I think the appointment of the current minister is a round peg in a round hole, because I listened to one or two things he has said, also with the session with the Senate. He said it very clear. So to be honest, I'm not sure there's any need to reinvent the wheels. He seems to have a very clear idea of what needs to be done and how it needs to be done. So I guess the implementation is just what needs to be looked into. And to be very straight, I think policy making, urban development, and working with the private sector are things it needs to prioritize. Again, some of these things, we are going into an election year, so I'm not quite sure how much the Honorable Minister might be able to achieve or accomplish in the space of time we have. But if we are going to ever have the number of houses we need to be able to ameliorate the shortage of housing we currently have in the country, it is the Federal Ministry of Housing. And for there to be affordable housing, it has to be the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development. So, in my honest opinion, it's not something he would be able to do by himself, given, of course, all the Land Use Act and everything for each independent state. So it needs to work with the state governments. It needs to be able to work with private developers to be able to accomplish all the things set out for him. And I guess in subsequent questions or something, we'll be able to highlight the various things that needs to happen. But PPP needs to happen. It needs to deepen PPP. Because, and again, like I said, he himself emphasized it. He talked about collaboration. He talked that he will work closely with stakeholders. So I think he has a fair idea of what needs to be done. I just hope the wherewithal and the ability to execute is something that will be carried out. So it needs to create policies. It needs to follow through incentive structures for developers. Remember, again, in one of the sessions we had, I made mention, if there are incentives, more developers will go into that field, and you will see that you'll be able to reduce the housing shortages. Developers do not do affordable housing because you can only sell what you build according to the factors of production, right? So if people are able to develop more, incentivize or subsidize, then I think more can be done in that space. I think I'll just leave it there for now.
All right, thank you very much for your opening remarks there, Mr. Olusanya. Now let's go to Lagos studio where we have Damola. Damola, you have listened to the other guest trying to x-ray the challenges before the new Minister of Housing and Urban Development. And from statistics, it said that 700,000 units is needed at least yearly to close the gap, you know, of housing in Nigeria, where we have less than 100,000. What exactly is the challenge? Is it land? Is it finance, or the political will to be able to meet these challenges?
Good morning, and thank you for having me again. The reality is it's a combination of everything you have mentioned. And the fact is that we have not really put the right foundation in place until this current government has looked at a very comprehensive approach to housing. And that's what the Renewed Hope Housing Program is all about, which is a three-pronged approach to see how we can tackle the housing deficit using targeted intervention in each of the areas that may apply. And that's why if you look at the Renewed Hope Cities program, it's designed to help the middle upper income parties own homes. If you look at the estates program, which is, you know, developing 250 to 500 in each of the 36 states, of which 14 has commenced already, is targeted to help low income to middle income earners. And then you have the social housing program, which is designed to implement 100 houses per local government, which would help, you know, really help with the vulnerable and the less income and low income individuals, either have a place to put their head, not necessarily own homes, but at least somewhere they can put their head for, you know, a very minimum stipend. So we need to build on the foundation and the legacy that has already been set forth. And I think within the next 30 days, the Honorable Minister will be looking forward to at least commissioning the first set of 2,000 to 3,000 homes, in the FCT and across the country. And then we need to start seeing some traction in terms of budgetary release to complete the existing estates program so that Nigerians can begin to feel the impact of these developments that have already commenced in 14 states across the country. And more importantly, within 90 days, we need to launch the Nigeria Social Housing Fund, which is a dedicated fund that would help us implement the social housing program, which may not necessarily be a rule of thumb to say 100 units per local government, but at least begin to put that targeted intervention to ensure that we begin to have houses that we can put out to the vulnerable income, low income parties to sleep. You know, this homeownership dream is a dream that we can achieve, but it will start somewhere. I say not everybody will own homes today. But if we continue with the plan that Mr. President has put forth before us, I think the Honorable Minister should be able to get these quick wins within the next 90 days and set, Nigeria on a path that will help us achieve this remarkable progress. We need to build on it. We've launched MRIF, which is the 250 billion housing, mortgage fund, which is going at 9.75%. We've been able to attract up to about 100 billion into the Renewed Hope Cities program. And if you combine that, that's 350 billion. That's a drop in the ocean compared to 5 trillion that is needed to impact the Nigerian housing industry. So I think leveraging on what has already been done, the good foundation that has already been laid, is something that the Honorable Minister will definitely take forward. And then also collaborating with the Ministry of Finance. You know, the real issue around the cost of housing and high rental costs is the factors of production. Housing in Nigeria is not expensive because it wants to be. Because cement that used to be 3,500 is now 11,500, 11,800. So we need to find a way to bring manufacturing home, and that's commissioning the Building Manufacturers Hub to help us begin to manufacture items here so that they are not exposed to foreign exchange impacts, and we can begin to look at how to deliver affordable housing in Nigeria. Thank you.
Okay, I'll still stay with you as a consultant, for the Renewed Hope cities in Nigeria. And we know that the minister is stepping into a sector where demand far of a waste supply, and his success will demand on actually how he quickly, you know, turn policies into affordable homes for Nigerians. And you said not every Nigerian will own a home, but I believe that is how it should be. The president said this is challenging times for national development. As a consultant, you know, for the Renewed Hope, you know, cities, how far has government gone with that Renewed Hope cities? How many Nigerians have been able to get access to these Renewed Hope cities that we'll be hearing about for more than 2-3 years?
Very much for this very important question, and I think this is where we start as Nigerians to measure how much progress have we made over time. Let me start with the Renewed Hope Cities program in Katsina, which is the foundation for the Renewed Hope program nationwide. For the first time since the days of Gwarimpa, which was done by the Abuja regime and Obasanjo regime, when last did we see a new district open up in Abuja, for example? Through direct intervention, the FCT minister, in collaboration with the Minister of Housing, they've opened up the Katsina district, and as I speak to you, 5,000 housing units are being built in that current location, and the Home Minister will be in a position to commission the first batch of 2,000 to 3,000 within the next 60 days to 90 days. That's where we are in Katsina. In Kano, we have delivered the first batch of 1,000 units across Phase 1 and Phase 2 in Janguza under the Renewed Hope Cities program. And in Lagos here, we have also delivered the first batch of 500 out of the 2,005 that the government intends to deliver along the Bedu Coastal City area. And that program is expected to expand to start the next phase of that program. Remember, these are all pilot programs to really see how private sector can participate or collaborate with governments to deliver this projects, you know, considering the budgetary constraints that exist. So from our scorecard, what we can tell you today is that we have a combination of about 5,000 to 6,000 housing units that have been delivered or will be delivered in the next 90 days under this program. That's on one side. Now, for the estates program, you have 14 states out of 36 states that have commenced, and the government intends to still make additional investments to ensure that this estates program, which is where you have the affordable gap, the affordable housing program being implemented. The average houses that are in that range cost between 10 million and 15 million, you know, which the Honourable Minister had announced, the former Minister had announced before his exit. I expect that the incoming Honourable Minister would implement and quickly advance the delivery of this project so that Nigerians can begin to feel the impact of this combined 4,000 homes that can be delivered in the next 6 months. That's number two. Number three is where I mentioned the issue of the national social housing, which is where I mentioned that not all Nigerians can own homes today. But the goal is to help all Nigerians own homes in the mid to long term, as the case may be. But we must put together a deliberate program, which is what Mr. President has done by saying that we must identify those within us that have no income. How can someone with no income own a home? The only way is for government to provide the infrastructure and the support for that to happen. If that is not there, then there's no way someone with no income can definitely own a home. And how do you separate who should own and who should not own a home? So this social housing program would help us implement a dedicated program across the 774 local governments. May not necessarily be the rule of thumb across, maybe saying we'll deliver 100 units in each of the local government, but based on the needs analysis that will be done in each of these states, we can begin to see how to deliver homes in these places and have them out to citizens at an affordable rental rate, just like we have all over the world in the UK, where you have council flats where people that are vulnerable can stay there for a temporary time being and pay very minimum rents to maintain the environment pending when they get on their feet to afford their own homes. So this is exactly where Nigeria needs to get to, and that's what Mr. President has encapsulated into the Renewed Hope Housing agenda.
All right, thank you very much, Damola, for that. The government needs to be very deliberate in its policies to ensure that every Nigerian has access to better housing units in this country. Let's go to Kaduna, where we have Shehu Usman Salihu, who is the permanent Secretary, Ministry of Housing and Urban Development. Shehu, you have listened to other guests on this show talking about, the challenges, trying to extract the challenges that we have in the housing sector. Tell us what exactly some of the challenges that you have in Kaduna, and what are the deliberate steps that the Kaduna state government is taking, because we, like Mr. Obisheson said, the slums are, growing faster than the planned cities. Do you have the similar situation in Kaduna?
Yeah, it's just like in some other parts of the country, it's a national issue. And in Kaduna, conscious of that, as a government, we've been trying to address that. But before I come to that, I believe it is important to further shed light on what Mr. Moses earlier said in his opening remarks, when he rightly stated that in Nigeria, as it were, we are having massive housing deficit, in fact, at a crisis level, simply because the rate at which we are producing houses is far less than the rate of our population growth. Nobody can dispute that. And I think closely associated with that is the fact that the very few we are producing those houses at an extremely high cost. So when you have a massive deficit and you have a very costly housing unit being made available to the citizens, definitely there will be crisis, and that's exactly what we are facing. Now, I believe, in addition to whatever other guests have stated, like the Renew Hub initiative, an excellent one, plus other interventions, I believe the task ahead of the minister is to fundamentally drive a process where most of these challenges that are inhibiting the growth of the housing sector will be substantially addressed. And in my honest view, if you address the issue of land, when I say land, I'm referring to a titled land. Once you have a mechanism that addresses this issue of access to titled land and correspondingly addressing the issue of housing finances, you will incentivize the sector to the extent that, in the spirit of global practice, more players, particularly the private sector, would be interested and involved in the industry. Government will just be creating the needed environment, facilitating, and you will see massive participation of private investors in the sector, to the extent that within no time we'll see a massive reduction of the deficit. That is on a general note. And in line with your question as regards to the issue in Kaduna State, yes, like the scenario pictured at the national level, we are equally conscious of the housing deficit in Kaduna, especially in the urban and suburban areas. As a government, what we've been doing in trying to address some of these issues I wanted the minister to address at our domestic level, His Excellency the Governor and his strategic team have been trying to address this issue of title land. What we've been doing is to make sure land is made available to serious and organized investors. As a government, we still have our social and other housing estate and projects, but we feel strongly that this is a sector that should be dominated by the private sector. So what we are doing as a government is to make land, titled land, without any encumbrances to developers. As I'm speaking with you in Kaduna, we have more than 3,000 hectares allocated to various developers. And what we've been doing is to make them feel very comfortable to invest massively. And within no time, we'll begin to see the end result of some of this investment, that Kaduna as a subnational will begin to drastically reduce this deficit. So if you have a system that allocates more than 3,000 hectares, you can bear me witness to the fact that serious investors with the kind of investment situation, investment-friendly environment we have in Kaduna State, will have more of such participation, and the deficit will be substantially addressed. Where we still have serious constraint, which I believe the minister can still come in to address, is the issue of finance, because even when, as a government, we do what we are doing now in trying to get the land available to investors and form of developers, there still faces a lot of constraint in the area of financing. And I'm aware of the fact that the mortgage institution, under the purview of the Honorable Minister of Housing and Urban Development, has introduced a lot of packages in trying to address that. Good one, but I still believe the enormous pressure in trying to get a very good system of financing is still a challenge. So I want to see a situation where the mortgage finance institution can be further empowered to be able to address some of this, and we should, as a government, nationally, equally begin to think of other options. The mortgage system is so unattractive to investors that they are finding it extremely difficult to invest. And let me speak on the issue of, for instance, the middle class, particularly the civil servant. I'm aware of the fact that there are a lot of controversies surrounding the issue of using the pension fund for critical national infrastructural development, a very controversial area, but I still believe in the midst of the crisis we are facing, we should begin to think objectively and constructively to think of trying to deploy some of these resources and injecting it into the real estate and the housing sector. That way, I believe the civil servant who owns this money that are ironically making them to be extremely poor. You see a civil servant staying for all through the exit point of his career, paying rent. I can understand the concern of civil servants and other labor stakeholders of being apprehensive of touching that money and trying to get investment in that area. Very genuine and valid concern, but I believe as a nation we cannot just begin to feel and remain fixated simply because some people are afraid of the safety of their funds. Then we begin to just feel nothing can be done in that area. I believe the minister, as the head of the ministry, should drive a process that will address some of this. If you address, as I've said, the issue of land titling, the issue of financing, very soon you will see a very good development in that sector, and within no time the deficit will be substantially reduced. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We know Kaduna is a cosmopolitan city, and there's a lot of migration from Abuja because of the high rate of rent in Abuja. People are taking their families back maybe to Kaduna, Niger State and all that, so that they can go on weekends. So I've seen some adverts in Kaduna of developers with houses coming up, but do you think it's affordable for Nigerians?
Just like I've said, you see a house that is ideally meant for a middle-class citizen or civil servant of the country, and in this case in Kaduna State, getting out of his reach simply because of the very costly nature of the housing as a unit. And the challenge, as I've said, remain. As a government, we've been trying to do our very best in trying to mitigate some of these challenges. I just mentioned to you the deliberate effort of the government in trying to get land available to the, but the developers, anytime we engage them in trying to interface with them to get to see why the unit of taking price is still very much out of the reach of the intended beneficiaries, they still make a point, a valid one, of the very high cost of financing. Real estate is a very capital-intensive sector where you need massive injection of funds, and definitely it's not within the capacity of a state government to do that. That's why we are inviting the private sector to be active partners. But we are constrained. You cannot force them to deliver houses that will, at the end of the day, make them lose out their investment. Then they will just leave the. But as a government, in addition to providing the land, what we've been doing deliberately to further scale down the prices is to, in addition to that, we help in providing infrastructures. It could be in form of access road to the sites, installation of some other basic facilities, which if were to be provided by the developer themselves, that will add to the unit selling cost. Yes, but I want to sincerely tell you that we are still not comfortable as a government the rate at which some of these houses are being sold to the intended. We want to see a massive scale down of these houses, and we believe whatever we are doing as a government at the subnational level can be given a bigger boost when we have a national mechanism that will address that. That's why I strongly advocated, and I still believe it's doable, to engage critical stakeholders in the area of financing. Once the issue of financing is addressed, and I still sincerely believe we cannot as a nation be having trillions of naira in the pension fund lying idle, quote and unquote, or unproductive, in my honest view. Yes, then the civil servants that own those monies are still being made to live throughout their life as tenants and living in slums and other unhealthy environment. Then additional effort by the state government is try to upgrade the slum. You see some estates being made to look as if it is elitist. Yes, in the context of the kind of life and the scenario we have now is still maybe looking elitist. But as a government, in trying to further have a systematized way of upgrading the slums and this, we have a deliberate project that we call slum upgrade. Yearly, we identify some areas where some of these shanties and other substandard structures get formalized, their land gets titled, which offers them opportunity to access various degrees of mortgage financing.
Okay. Pamsek, thank you so much. We know what is happening now in Kaduna, and the government is trying as much as possible to remove some bottlenecks so that Nigerians can have access to affordable housing. And we also have, the private sector here seated in the studio.
No, before we go to the private sector again, let's take a clip from the minister. Okay. We had this interview, and the producer already has a clip. Let's have a play. Okay. The excerpt from that interview from the minister. Let's listen to him.
I know there are so many challenges in the housing industry in Nigeria. Not only because Nigeria now needed about 20 million units of housing to get accommodation to more than 100 million people that are unhoused. So that is a tremendous challenge now. We know all of that, but we are strategic, we are focused, we are forward-looking, we are people who actually think much, much faster than the time we are in. And I am telling you, we'll bring a lot of innovation and creativity.
All right, thank you very much. That's Mr. Moses. You just listened to the minister. He said they are focused, they are strategic, and that they know the demands, over 20 million housing units for Nigerians. But then, I mean, the man from Kaduna, that's Shehu, he talked about the issue of finance and affordability, and the challenge actually with ordinary Nigerians or even the civil servants is assessing the mortgage. And over 1%, let's say over 1%, just less than 1% can actually access this mortgage. How do you think? How would you advise the new minister to make the Federal Mortgage Bank, actually work for average civil servant? What do you think can be done?
Thank you very much. I think I love what the minister has said. Fantastic. But we must go beyond the talk. We must actually walk the talk. Now, you just started. Just do the maths. An average house, of course, some less, some more. An average house, let's say, costs 50 million naira. It will cost us 5 trillion to do 100,000 units.
Naira.
5 trillion naira is required to do 100,000 units of 50 million naira houses. Because if we know the figure, it helps everybody to think, to know that we're not, the FMBN is not scratching it, with all due respect. It's not scratching it at all. That's government agency, for crying out loud. They should scale like never before. The minimum base that FMBN should have, Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria should have, is 5 trillion. That they don't have anything 5 trillion. Why are you coasting around where they say we should have is 5 billion, and then what I have is 2.5? Come on, man. It's just a joke. It's a joke. We're not going anywhere if we're not going to address that's a rot there. Government agency, 5 billion. Private people are doing. A friend with just a cooperative society recently launched $5 billion. That's 7.5 trillion of capital base. Cooperative. I don't want to be mentioning names right here. What a serious guy. And government is sitting on 5 billion. We're joking. It's a joke. Now, so that's for FMBN. FMBN, like yesterday, should capitalize from that their powdery 5 billion to 5 trillion minimum. Because we need to also be juxtaposing whatever we're doing with our contemporaries. Look at what other nations are doing. Look at it, man. So that's that. I mean, so in the first place, they need to increase what the mortgage possibilities are for Nigerians. Don't just say, yeah, before initially FMBN will say the maximum you can pick is 15 million. Right now they say you can pick 50 billion. But how many Nigerians, not up to 1% of Nigerians will pick it? And they've been here forever. No, it's not done that way. You're a government body. You can attract this funding. You can, if you're serious about it. So that's that for the mortgage side. You know, MRIF came in, and MRIF that just a year or two, quickly capitalized to a level of 250, and they want to hit 1 trillion. Kudos, not doing badly. Quickly, they should not even stop at 1 trillion. They should quickly move on to about 5-10 trillion. That's what it needs to be. Because if you know what you want to address, then you know what tools that you need for it. Nigerians deserve some of this stuff, and I'm talking about Nigerians who can pay. I'm not even talking about the social housing and the affordable whatever. That's a different ballgame. I'm talking about Nigerians that can pay. I love what the PAMSEC said, that why are you keeping money in PENCOM, you know, and people you cannot use it for critical need. Look, a judge, recently, a judge of High Court judge retired after she spent incredible 35 years. Somebody referred her to me, and she called me, Mr. Obisha, son worker. I met her. She didn't have a house. 35 years of incredible service to this country. I was carrying her. At a point, I asked her, I said, madam. And when I went to the house they gave her while she was serving, big, massive house in Gwarimpa, I said, they gave you chauffeur driving, lovely stuff. But she's moving in, they were pressuring her, get out of this house, and then she doesn't have a house, not one house. She had to go and rent a house, even before she could get a place to rent for. I told her, I said, you have to sell part of your load, because our materials were too many. I said, madam, do you want to get this straight thing? You got to sell some of this stuff. 3, 4 sitting rooms, all kinds of. I said, madam, you sell this because your rent, how much you have to rent, cannot have, you cannot get.
There's no space.
There's no space. So she sold part of whatever she's living. I say, whoa, this is somebody who has given 35 years of her life at that level, High Court judge. If I mention her name, everybody will know her. That's what Nigerians are going through. So the people that they have put in place, I think they need to get up and move. enough of these excuses why whatever. I don't know for any reason why FMBN should be where it is today. No reason for that. The same way we are telling banks, you tell private sector banks to go and recapitalize. Why are you not telling your own, the government-owned agency to do same? So I want to see a radical capitalization from these two agencies. You know, MRIF, is coming up strong. That's good. MRIF had to increase what they give, 100 million. They are saying you can access 100 million at 9.75. That's fantastic. You understand? 9.75. It's okay. You understand? But make it accessible quickly to Nigerians, because there are a lot of Nigerians that can afford it. People think houses are not what you buy on the go. No, an average house will last 50 years. So I don't need to have made the money to buy into the future. No, what it should be is that there's a mortgage that is spread. MRIF does 20 years right now. Then FMBN is doing 30 years, but the 30 years nobody can access.
And how many Nigerians even know about?
So now you need a situation where if you capitalize a little more, you can extend. I'm challenging MRIF, extend it a little bit to 30, so that an average Nigerians can walk in, pick this mortgage, buy the house, and even use the house to insure it. If the guy dies before he finished paying, whoever is taking over the asset will continue from there. It's no brainer. Houses are things that you don't go wrong with. Build it and let it run. So that's the first thing, recapitalize. So the second thing is the Honorable Minister must work very seriously with the Governors Forum. No story. Get the Governors Forum to really be able to really sit back and be able to unlock the land assets everywhere, so that you're not talking to one governor. You're not going to cut it. No, Nigerians are not going to wait for you endlessly. We want you to deliver within this time. So you get Governors Forum and you just tell them, look, let's have an handshake where we can have access to land as quickly as possible. Nigerians can really have access to land. Then you also need to work with the minister and also commissioner for works, because again you must be doing infrastructure to where you want a developer to be. I have a project that I'm actually running for the Nigerian Army in Life Camp here. And there's no road to the place. You see the challenge. When we estimated what the worth of that houses should be, it was beautiful to what it can be. But because there's no road to there, on Saturday, do you know what I did? When I got to Life Camp, I had to drive down to go and see what is the easiest connecting road to be able to ensure that we don't just construct houses and then the guys cannot move in.
There's no access to.
There's no access.
Especially when it rains.
They can't move it. The houses are lovely, good estate, but it's in a remote place where there is no infrastructure, no road to the place. So you must now work with some of your fellow minister for works and all of that, and maybe commissioner, to be able to, for FCT, maybe you work with the FCT ministry to say, okay, you know what, you guys want to do road, blah, 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 to everywhere, but can you do to this corridor, can you do to that, so that there is a coordinated development. So that the road is not going this way and the houses are expected to go in this direction. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. So you have some of these different agencies and people. Because let me tell you something, if you provide infrastructure, an average developer will get the house done. And now, when you know that you don't have the capacity to provide infrastructure, then you can have land swap arrangement. Okay. To say, okay, you know what? Now, developer, you know what? I know you want to do your estate, but if you can do a road that gets there, look at what Dangote did in the refinery and whatever. I said, look, I'm going to do XY road to make sure. Things like that, we can work this out. It's just that open up the channel for discussion and be serious. I think it's more of political will. Okay. If you want to get something done, it can be done. Nigerians are here, we can get it done. Private people will bring in the resources, but they want to see your seriousness. They want to be sure that you are not kidding, that you're not going to have policy somersault. I've already done can you imagine if I pull out investors fund with me and build an estate, and then after you say you're going to do road, there's no road there, I have to go and think about how to raise funds to do road, which was not calculated in my estimates and all of that. I think there's need to be some coordination and a whole lot of stuff.
Yeah, the challenge, you know, it's huge, and the job is actually very, very difficult. Let's bring in Mr. John into this conversation now. The job is difficult, and even with good plans, the minister will face a lot of real challenges and constraints. So what must he do now before we go on break?
Oh, thank you very much, ma. You know, interestingly, I still want to bring us back to those at the 70% bottom of the earning pyramid. These are people who will present the scorecard of the minister at the end of the day. How much am I paying for rent? Do I have a house at the end of the day? I'm close to retirement. What do I have? Can I live in the city center? Because when you talk to the average Nigerian, they hear some of these housing schemes. They'll tell you, because basically I'm in the field, I interact with a lot of them, and I say, no, not for big men. Not for big men. The moment you're driving that flashy car, not for big men. It's not for us. They just have it at the back of their mind. Now, the task is enormous. And I heard what the consultant, the PPP consultant said. You can't build, not everyone will own a house. But can everyone own a piece of land? Can it be structured in such a way, just as Mr. Obistation said? Can there be a coordinated approach to this such that everyone owns a piece of land? The minister was in close collaboration, just as Mr. Obistation mentioned, with the Nigeria Governors Forum. Have dedicated lands across the country, service plots, infrastructure laid out, water, electricity. And then you have somebody who has served in Plateau State, for example, and wants to retire to my home state, Kogi, and feels, I don't want to stay in Plateau State. I want to go back home. Can he have that access to land where he gets a loan from the government, a very low interest loan, so that he begins to build and probably offset the cost of that land or offset the cost of that loan from his retirement benefits? So for his tenure to be remarkable, such that the average Nigerian will remember, is what do I have at the end of the day? Can there be land? Can I have access to low funds? Because if the developers want to build these houses, the truth is they access funds at commercial rates. I will not access funds at commercial rates and then begin to build affordable homes for, you know, people. At the end of the day, I will lose. My investor will not have trust in me. And these are people that want return on their investment. So this is just, you know, some of the points I have for now.
All right, thank you very much. We already have some comments and questions from our viewers, but we'll read them out when we come back from this short break. Stay with us.
You're welcome back, and you're still watching Good Morning Nigeria. We've been discussing the tasks ahead of the Minister of Housing and Urban Development, and Nigerians have been sending their messages. If you still want to contribute, you can send yours. Let me begin to read some of the messages that came in from Ajayi Tunde Moses ATM. He said, "Good morning, sirs. The main problem we have is that the houses built by various governments are being bought by rich people and they make business with them. What the government should do is to rent the houses to the masses at affordable amounts so that those that do not have money to buy can rent, which could be better." And Adamu Umar from Bauchi said, "I congratulate the new minister, Nigeria and Nigerians. I've heard a lot and seen a lot for a very long time. What he should focus on are sincerity and timely implementation of decisions and commission millions of houses built by the FG state initiative across the nation." Say, God bless the presenters and the guest. And Ikeju Olugbaju said, "Minister Rabe has greater risks of tax of being the fixing the over 25 million housing gap. But this is not insurmountable. He needs to study the presidential performance bond and break it down to the directorate level for its directors and head of agencies to align with its with its performance system management, and request for escalation of budget to support his ministry, and finally review the activities of private sector collaboration to ensure that quality services are delivered to complement his efforts. Mr. Demola.
Maybe we should have maybe
yes.
some of the guests to respond to that.
If you are there, can you respond to some of that?
I'm not sure I'm being heard. Hello?
We can hear you.
Some of the comments from our viewers that they sent. Did you?
Okay, so I think the very first one that I had to speak to building houses, and so I didn't quite understand one of the questions. Is it like the houses from those that have bought them and rent it out to people? Or I'm not quite sure I got the context of that.
Let me read it again for you. He said, let me read it again. He said, good morning, sirs. The main problem we have is that the houses built by various governments are being bought by rich people and they make business with them. What the government should do is to rent the houses to the masses at affordable amount so that those that do not have money to buy can rent, which should be better. That's
okay. Well, I think that speaks to a structural problem in terms of policies and implementation. So if the idea of the so-called estates that was built is meant to be social housing, then that speaks more to, I don't know, maybe a Nigerian problem. I'm not quite sure how to describe that problem. But again, like I think Mr. Damola spoke to earlier, if social housing programs are to be done, then in terms of implementation and those who get those units, it's important that it goes to those that can afford it, rather than friends and families and stakeholders that brought it about in the first place. So yes, some of these things, to be honest, just has to do with sincerity, implementation, and the likes of it. So I'm not quite sure. If that has been implemented, I'm not so sure we can tackle that except for policies, execution, implementation of some of those things. So I'm off the top of my head, I think that's what that speaks to be honest.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Oluseya, for that. Okay, let's take some of the other comments from our guest. This is from Abubakar Sadiq. He said, Honorable Minister, but unfortunately, the Honorable Minister is not here, but I guess the Minister is listening. He said, how can you extend your federal government hands of fellowship to the states in areas of housing for the less privileged? A state like Kogi and Lokoja precisely cost of house rent is unbearable, no difference with FCT Abuja. Please, we appeal to the new minister to assist our people by building a federal government housing estate in our state. Okay, this from Mohammed Awal Musa Afamia. Okay, our usual guest, usual viewer, actually. He said, welcome back, Jumai. So he's welcoming you back after your long break.
Thank you.
It's wonderful to have you back on our screens. What strategic plans are in place to mitigate the pressure on urban centers by developing housing and infrastructure in rural and semi-urban communities? Maybe we'll direct that to Damola in our Lagos studio to answer that. And also we have this one from Adeosun. Goodness, Adeosun. Adeosun is from Owode Idiroko, Ogun State. And he says, good morning. Thank you for this program. Sincerely, if the government could provide housing for unhoused citizens in the urban and rural areas, even if it will be put for rental or sale, it will be much appreciated. Okay, Amala, you want to comment on some of these comments that we have gotten from our viewers?
Thank you so much for these questions. Let me start with the last one. I think one of the comments from one of our guests in the studio in Abuja made it clear to say At the end of the day, the minister's appraisal will be based on what Nigerians can touch and feel, based on policy and direction of this of the government. The president has laid out a very clear roadmap and very clear strategic plan for implementation. And for the ones that, for people that in the past, we've seen scenarios where houses have been built. Rich men, like they call them, have bought them and resold them at higher prices to citizens. Let me assure the, watching the people watching this program that that's not the case in this government. The previous minister has laid the foundation which the minister can ride on, where you're now required to use your BVN to, to participate in any social intervention program led by the government, and that way we're able to narrow down the, some of these practices that could be items of the past. I'm sure by the time we refine these policies further, we can begin to see clear traction on making sure that this intervention gets directed to the citizens that deserve them. That's number one. So these are some of the initiatives that I know that are already being implemented as we speak. And then concerning the issue of rents, the truth is in any urban center, rents are very high. Because of the congested nature of some of our urban centers. Like I said, if you look at what we used to have in 1979, 1 in 5 Nigerians used to live in an urban center. Now we have 3 in 5 people live in urban centers, which is an astronomical raise compared to what we used to have. So that would put a lot of pressure on local infrastructure. And this is where the issue of social housing and the social intervention programs around rentals can come in. And this is down to the local government. Excuse me. This is down to making sure that we can get housing functional, even at the rental level, at the local government, level. And that's why I think the minister has to quickly implement the National Social Housing Program of Mr. President to at least help ameliorate the impacts of these high rental costs immediately. And then lastly is the bringing down the cost of finance and the cost of materials in Nigeria by setting up these building manufacturers hub. The reality is that we know the solutions to these questions on these issues. The willpower, the political will to move on them is where we've always had challenges. And these structural challenges will not get knocked out overnight. We just have to keep on preferring the right solutions to government. I'm sure we have a listening government, and the minister definitely will convey a forum at his own discretion where he can also take direct feedback. But what I want to assure Nigerians is that the government of today has laid a foundation that we can build on. It's pathetic for someone to spend 35 years, 30 years in service and go home without any form of, consideration. And that's why you see that even the 10 billion that the government voted last week for civil servants is still not enough to address the real issues around, civil servants and, the general populace owning their own homes. So until we can get more private sector funding, which we have started. Like I said earlier on, 350 billion, it's unprecedented. No government in any recent history has been able to attract such capital into the housing industry. And that's exactly what we need to build on. How do we move from 350, 400 to 5 trillion is the question that the minister has to deal with upon resumption, reviewing this program and implementing them.
Mr. Moses also raised an issue there about, pension, funds that is just being stuck there, and, civil servants cannot access it. Do you think the minister should push for policy changes sort of to unlock pension funds for housing, and how can they be safeguarded?
Pension is a very delicate issue. Because the regulations that protect our pension funds is in the best interest of the contributors themselves. Imagine if we have a policy that allows such movement into the housing industry, and then those funds get stuck. and then the retirees come out from service and they are unable to access this pension benefit. So, in my opinion, I feel that the MRIF is a product of attracting pension funds. You know, so if you look at it, about 100 billion of those funds came from pension investments. So we have to find a convenient structure that gives comfort to pension funds to say they are happy to make those investments. And you can see the success story of MRIF. They have paid out dividend even within the first year of operation. Last year, they declared profits for Q1. So we need to see more initiatives like this, you know, and if those initiatives are well guided, I'm sure they can channel those funds into the housing industry. But anybody bringing finance to the table will not only bring finance just because there is land only. No. They will bring finance to the table because there is land and there is the comfort that the off-takers can pay or will pay for the buildings that are being developed under this scheme. So we need to get the government and subnationals to provide some comfort that in the event where these things don't work out the way they have been planned, some kind of comfort can set in to allow those funds go back into the pension funds and then they can progress along those lines. And which is why Family Home Funds was set up in the first place, an agency of government under the Ministry of Finance. And they have been doing a lot in that area and they need to do more. But where we are right now in the crisis we are dealing with, government intervention is going to be very, very limited.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much, Damola. Okay, we still have more comments from the viewers. This one is from Nandom Weir from Jos. He said, indeed, housing and urban development in Nigeria face severe challenges, including a massive housing deficit of over 60% of people face housing issues. Rapid, unplanned urbanization, high cost of building materials, inadequate financing for infrastructure. The key task must involve implementing the national housing policy, enhancing land administration, fostering public-private partnership, and developing slums. How effective must the role of local government be in the task of housing? Thank you, and God bless Nigeria. That's from Nandom Wuye from Jos. This one also is from, where are the prices of Renew Hope houses in Kasana, Lagos, and Kano? Maybe Damola will just answer that before we go to our Kaduna studio. He is asking, what are the prices of Renew Hope houses in Kasana, Lagos, and Kano?
They're all on the portal. The Ministry of Housing has a portal called Renewed Hope, www.renewedhopehomes.fmhud.gov.ng. All the prices are clearly listed there. I do know the ones in Kasana will depend on the house types. So please feel free to go to the portal and express interest in any of the units that meet your requirements.
Let's bring in Malam Shehu into this conversation. Our time is sort of rounding up. Malam Shehu, you've listened to this conversation in the studio, and we cannot overemphasize the fact that the subnationals have a huge role to play in easing, you know, the housing deficit in Nigeria. And Kaduna State actually is trying to do that. So how can civil servants in Kaduna, in 2 minutes, how can civil servants in Kaduna be able to afford houses, be able to get titled land, how can we just ease this whole thing? Because it's all talk most of the time and there's less work.
In Kaduna, we've been trying to accelerate the process of having access to decent and affordable housing to the citizens of the state, particularly the civil servant, through many other schemes directly by the government and facilitated through the participation of private developers. What we do is to digitalize our land registry. Kaduna is one of the first subnationals that have done that, and happily, recently, the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development is driving a process in partnership with the World Bank in trying to further drive the land digitalization of and titling in Kaduna State along with some other states. That way we believe will facilitate access to mortgage financing and other mechanism of acquiring housing by the citizens of the state. And let me quickly add that whatever we do as a government, no matter how we maybe massively construct housing in urban and suburban centers, as long as the rural development component is not simultaneously addressed, we'll still have some issues after some time. So as a government in Kaduna State, while we are doing those aspects, largely concentrating on the urban and some urban centers, the government is equally consciously and deliberately addressing the issue of rural development. Not long ago, His Excellency commissioned a road project that traversed about 75 communities. These are done carefully to make life meaningful and easier for the rural population so that they will not be migrating unnecessarily to the urban centers to put pressure on the little facilities, including the housing projects we are doing to be made almost useless over time. So in my honest view, the way to go is to address the issues holistically and systematically, and that's exactly what the Kaduna model is doing. And I believe, just like advocated by one of the speakers, the minister should interface with the governors forum so that the whole nation will be on the same page. It may be at a different level, but as a concept, we should have a common direction and the way to go so that our urban and rural centers will be witnessing sustainable development. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, your 2 minutes is up. Thank you so much. I have a question. It's a plea actually to Mr. Moses. In 1 minute, you can respond to it. So, good morning, Uncle Demola, Haji Ajume, and everyone in the studio. I want to ask Mr. Obiseson, how can they help average civil servants interested in having a house? Because the amount developers are requesting is more than what a civil servant can afford. All our lifetime in service is on loan. Please help us. We don't want to retire and go back to square one. Another one said, good morning, can the government look into the matter of 2 years rent, most especially in Abuja? How can 3-bedroom be going for 10 million naira and the landlord will be asking for 2 years and average civil servants can afford it? In 1 minute, please.
Okay, basically, what Stratec is doing, is that we profile anybody who comes to us to just want to know how many years do you still have active working, and all of that. And then when we do the amortization, we're able to actually give you, because what Stratec is doing is end-to-end. Now we give mortgage. So we are not just waiting for EMRI, for FMB, and we've done that before. We've waited for FMB and all that. We realize it's not working. So we actually now have our own inflow ourselves, where anybody who comes to us will not only be able to buy our house, but we're able to provide mortgage to just say, you can lash in on this, and then you can pay over years. Depends on what you're earning and the number of years that we have.
And
like what we did with the Nigerian Army, we just told them we're going to give you at 9.5, and then they gave us 600 of their members, and then we profiled them, and we just say, look, all of these people can have houses nationwide in any of our estates or in anywhere, and then we can fund that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Obisha. So we can go further for that.
Okay,
Let's get your last part in short. Mr. Olusoya talked about, crashing, the cost of building materials. What do you think government can do actually in that instant? Because the price of cement has doubled.
In 30 seconds, we've run out of time. In 30 seconds, please.
To crash?
Crashing would depend on a whole lot of factors, but I don't want us to use the word crash. I don't want us to go in that direction. I think I rather want us to explore housing manufacturing. How do we build at scale? How do we bring in materials to begin to build prefab? How do we explore alternative building materials? Everyone is fixated on cement. A bag of cement is an average of 12,000 naira now. It's not going to come down anytime soon because of several factors. But can we then begin to explore alternative building materials, and they begin to manufacture
like the red
houses
bricks.
at scale.
Like the red bricks.
Like,
Okay,
yeah.
okay. Thank you, John Olugbemi, Head Marketing and Communications, the Millard Fuller Foundation.
Thank you very
appreciate
much.
your time and
Thank
your
you.
contribution
Thanks for
to this
having me.
conversation. Ambassador Moses Kolawole Obisasa, CEO Strategic Properties Limited, a real estate broker and developer, certified international property specialist designate, member National Association of Realtors USA, fellow Society of Project International, promoter of 1 million homes. So always it's been a
Thank you
pleasure
very much.
having us.
My pleasure to be.
Thank you so much. And Olukayode Olusanya, who joined us via Zoom, CEO, the Oak Holdings parent company of Oak Homes. He joined us via Zoom from Lagos. We appreciate your time with us.